It's 9:35 here on AM 1150, 101.7 FM, WDEL.com. Every now and again, we keep a look on what's happening with the jobs market. It's ever-changing, clearly an important part of your life. And so we enroll the help of Chris Burkhard, Placer Staffing, and we're doing it again today because, well, he gave us his phone number once, and we're like, hey, let's go. Chris, good morning.
Good morning. It's been a great run with you. Thanks for having me on today.
Yeah, you bet. Any old time. So, Chris, let's take a look at where things stand now. We saw record numbers of Americans, I think it was about 4.5 million, who quit their jobs in March. And even if all these people who left the job market during the pandemic came back, would there not still be employers struggling to find workers? And if so, why is that?
Well, Pete, the simple answer is if everybody got a job that wanted one, there'd still be 6 million jobs available. So I think that explains why people are moving around. And 3% of all Americans changed jobs in March. And what's interesting is most of them left in pursuit of more money. But we did see a trend in people looking for remote work, shifting in professional and service roles. And they can do it because there is an abundance of jobs. Now, statistically, right before the pandemic, things were still pretty good. There was 1.25 jobs for every one employed person. Today, it's almost 2 jobs for every one unemployed. And I think just like the headline of this story is there's just less people working. No. There is about the same number of jobs. There's about 4 million people that just stopped working or maybe retired early and that kind of thing. So what I think is interesting is that even before the pandemic, there were a lot of unfilled jobs. And this is just an exaggerated continuation of that story.
Yeah, it certainly is. I think back to, say, late March, early April 2020, when we were starting to get a handle on what this pandemic was and was not. And I guess that's probably when a lot of people started to transition to this remote work, working from home. And at the time, it was so foreign to so many, Chris. And with all of the interest since then, and the talk about working from home versus going into the office, right? A lot of people like that remote work. But there are some interesting benefits to going back into the office. What are some of the things you're hearing about?
So I'm glad you set it up that way because I wanted to study, well, how many jobs are really remote, first of all?
Yeah.
And of new job postings, about 9% say all remote. So, just to set that table. But many jobs require a return to work schedule, a hybrid, or frankly, being in the office all the time. So we're seeing hybrid schedules on average of about 2 days. And, that's kind of an interesting thing, just that it's settled into that. But work from home has well-documented benefits. I've talked on your show about that. But now, folks, that they're finding that being in the office has some things that just don't work at home. And here's the 3 interesting trends. Socialization without needing video or Zoom or any of those things. It's kind of nice to have lunch with somebody. Overhearing a great idea that's just kind of spontaneous. Being able to more easily collaborate. And as I keep hearing, when I'm kind of stuck, it's kind of pain in the butt to have to instant message you or call you. But when you're sitting in the office next to me, I can get something done without a big hoopla. Second funny thing, just better office equipment. How many people have a poor home setup with a desk jammed in the corner of their living room or bedroom or a printer that barely works? So ironically, that just having a little better equipment is a big thing. And then the one that really surprises me is if you have a reasonable commute, 20 minutes or something like that, people are realizing the value of a commute. It's a distinct starting and ending of the day. It's a clean break from work. And, when you're in your home office, it's really easy to have it all kind of blend into one. So that little bit of separation. Now, you got a 2-hour commute, that's a different story. But this sort of is defining the day, and I think we all like kind of that habitual feel of that.
Yeah, those are great points. Absolutely. What's interesting, too, Chris, we're seeing a lot of things going on in our world right now. There are new COVID lockdowns in Asia. There's the war, of course. There's inflation just pounding the economy right now. And yet we're still getting reports of Americans showing that people are traveling and shopping a lot like they used to pre-pandemic. So What is the impact of that on jobs and careers?
There's been a lot talking about the economic side of it, but not the job side of it. And some of this may be kind of obvious to the listener, but our economy and jobs are driven by the almighty consumer in this country. And the consumer's buying habits and preferences not only dictate how businesses go, but how jobs go. And I don't think it takes a lot to realize that folks are making up for lost time, and they might not be buying sofas and blenders and that kind of thing, but they're going to concerts and they're going to the gym and they're going to the spa. Yeah. But guess what? All these shifts, all of a sudden, service jobs are red hot. At Placers, we are seeing receptionists and customer service and corporate travel specialists and kind of your classic roles in restaurants and hotels. And that stuff was really a barren wasteland for a long time. So it's a real shift back to service, and industries are really struggling to find talent. But hey, if you love that kind of work, wages are up, and it's not hard to find something. But if you're in that industry, you're really working really hard to attract talent and be an attractive employer. Now, on the other side, this probably doesn't take much to think about. But if you're selling hand sanitizer or baking supplies or canned soups, all of a sudden there's a dramatic decrease in an interest in those things. And what we are seeing is our manufacturing clients in those cases are kind of settling down, a little less overtime. There are not so many people behind. They're not using as many contractors. I'm not saying it's back to business, but it isn't quite the madness of the pandemic.
Very, very interesting. Yeah. Hey, great stuff this week, Chris. I appreciate you coming on. And just real quick before I let you go, you mentioned how many jobs are available out there. What I was curious about is when it comes to Placers, obviously you have a big role when people are looking for work and they can't maybe find the job that they want. But in this environment, right, where we have just this bevy of jobs, for people that are trying to navigate their way through that situation, which can be equally confusing, I mean, can you kind of help guide them through that process?
It's interesting. Placers is in its 50th year. So I think the story of the job market is constantly and forever changing. And we kind of pride ourselves on being able to be a student of that and help the job seeker navigate that. So, we talked about a lot of different skills today, but we absolutely are here to help people navigate it, but also be a broker if they're interested in finding a job. We're pretty good at that. We've been doing it for a long time, Pete.
Yeah, keeps the lights on for sure, and then some. Chris Burkhard joining us, Placer Staffing here on Delaware. Till next time, have a great weekend, Chris, and thank you.
Thank you, Pete. Talk to you soon.
All right, 9:45 here on AM 1150, 101.7 FM, WDEL.com.